I do want to go back to staff, to Ian, because there was a lot of comments about these clam guns or slurp guns. Maybe you can help us out and talk about those. Or Dr. Schumann, I see you're ready. I mean,
Sir, Ian's here.
Yeah, good.
Great. Yeah, so I want to be very clear that the regulations we are proposing still permit these clam guns and slurp guns to be used. We spent a significant amount of time with staff in the Department Office of General Counsel and with law enforcement staff to make sure that these would be interpreted clearly, that the gear that is being prohibited is this hydraulic pump gear that is providing a pressurized stream of water to liquefy the substrate around the sand. So that.
Okay. No, that's helpful. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Dr. Schumann, did you have a comment, or I don't know if you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I can speak to some of the other questions if the commission's interested in them.
That'd be great, yeah.
So just a couple of the notes I took. So Ian, first of all, great job on the presentation. I think this is your first presentation to the commission, so well done. We talked about the slurp gun issue, the inclusion of the other species, the sand crabs and the shrimp. As was pointed out, anglers don't use this gear type for those species, but we're including it now to avoid a potential loophole later down the road. So if enforcement's out there and they see someone using this gear, they can't say, well, I'm using it for sand crabs, I'm not fishing for clams. And it's also to prevent this the prevalence of this gear from increasing. So it's purely to prevent problems in the future, and it won't affect current operations. The question about the status of the stock and efficiencies of the gear, that's something that we've been thinking quite a bit about. And it's one of the reasons why we hadn't brought this as a rulemaking to the commission after the petition was authorized, gosh, almost a year ago now, because we were looking into that specific question. Sometimes efficiencies aren't necessarily a bad thing. There are potential habitat impacts from existing gear, and this could be a cleaner gear type. Those are some of the things we were looking at. But as we've seen with COVID, just this tremendous increase of anglers in our intertidal area, which on one hand is a great thing, right? We want more people out there utilizing our resources. We want more people outside, physically distanced, enjoying nature, getting safe, sustainable seafood. On the other hand, our regulations weren't designed to accommodate that kind of increased pressure. And so we found ourselves scrambling, trying to figure out what do we do. And this is one that we already had in the hopper. We had already identified it as a potential problem. We saw this rapid increase. And so that's one of the reasons why we're bringing it to you as an emergency rulemaking now. As you saw in the next step slide in the presentation, prior to doing a standard rulemaking or a regular rulemaking at the expiration of the emergency, we're going to evaluate this as best we can, the status of the stock, the sustainability of the fishery, the gear type, and that could include different types of gear allowances or restrictions, different bag limits, anything's on the table at this point. But this is really a stopgap measure to try to protect the resource.
Great, thank you, Dr. Schumann. Any other questions or comments by the commissioners? If not, yes, Vice President.
If I may, President Silva. Yeah, I just thank you for that, Dr. Schumann and Ian. I just wanted to provide a little bit of further context, maybe some altitude. This is an emergency rulemaking that we're talking about, but we did get the petition in June 2019, right? So we're coming up on 2 years. This isn't, I don't think we're necessarily acting too fast. And when you look at all of these factors taken together, yes, people are over limit, but again, this rapid increase in participation where you have 190 people out at once in Tomales Bay, which adds significantly to the department's enforcement burden to ensure that bag and possession limits are being followed. as well as, questions about whether these efficiencies are supporting sustainable harvest of the resources into the future, potential impacts to biogenic habitat and eelgrass, providing access to previously inaccessible clam beds in deeper water at increased times before and after low tide clams are accessible. They're just, when taken all together, and again, when I read the regulations, they are written quite narrowly. And again, slurp guns, clam guns, rigid clam tubes, those are all still allowed under the proposed regs. So taken together, I think there are quite a lot of reasons to at least take a pause and afford ourselves a little bit of breathing room while we assess. I think in this case, it really does call for the precautionary approach, and I don't think we want to wait until it's too late to do something that really feels timely.
Great, thank you.